Introducing the newly tooled Paragon 2 Pennsylvania T1 in its as-delivered form. Brought to you by the company that does Pensy best, Broadway Limited Imports.
Hey there guys, it's Racer101 back with another model train review for you today. Today we're going to be reviewing my favorite locomotive of all time, the Broadway Limited Paragon 2 Series T1 4444 Duplex Phase 1 as delivered scheme number 5501 or 5501 for the Pennsylvania Railroad. To kick things off, I have already unboxed this, which the video will be inserted here. I've been waiting for this moment for 12 years. Hey there guys, Adrius101 back with another video for you today. The box may seem opened right now, but that's just gonna get some papers out of it and mark off my address. This is the official unboxing and review of the Broadway Limited Pennsylvania Railroad T1 4444 Duplex, number 5501. I have wanted a Pennsylvania Railroad T1 since I was 3 years old. And when I heard they came out with them from Broadway Limited, I couldn't be happier. This is the first time I've looked at this locomotive, and I want to tear into this thing and I want to get it running, but there are certain specifications that I must go under for myself because I want all my friends to be there when I first set this thing on the layout. HO scale, Paragon 2 sound. Might be a little difficult to open with two hands. Alright. It's the first time I've ever actually owned a T1. As you can tell, I'm much more composed now as I was then, because ever since I was 3 years old and I was watching a Lionel train review, or Lionel train video, I saw one of these and I have loved this engine ever since. So fast forward 12 years, we're here, and I finally have one in my possession. Now, a running review of this will be located somewhere within this video, more than likely towards the end. I'm not sure yet because I haven't filmed it. But this engine can pull 30 cars up a grade easily. I have already test ran this. It does not do very well on curves because it will derail, but that's to be determined later on in this video. The sound is phenomenal. The chuff rate is amazing, but we're going to go and jump into the comprehensive review of the locomotive itself without running it. So let's go on ahead and start off with the easiest part, the tender. Now, just to begin this review, as you could tell, let's do some of the minor pieces that you can see just by looking at it from the side. You can obviously tell there's an access door here. It's heavily shrouded among the trucks. We also have the connection cord for the DCC into the locomotive. This can actually be run on DC and DCC mode. I do not know how to run it on DC mode. That will be included in the manual that you get. But the model, you can tell it's very sharp with the paint. All the lines are very sharp. All the decals, I believe this is paint. I'm not sure if it's decal. Keep moving my hand into the light. Over here, the keystone is very, very sharp, as you can tell from here. The keystone, all the lines are perfect. There's no markings in it that you could tell that it was machined. But the model in general is just breathtaking to me. The coal load, I believe, is real coal. I'm just going to give you a little bit of a close-up there. It is very shiny, as a matter of fact. I believe they shot it with a bit of a clear coat. It's stationary, does not move, does not have any flex to it whatsoever. Here is the access point of the tender that hooks onto the rear of the cab. Here's your cable. The cable is very hard to connect. You will see that when we connect it later on. But here is the inside of it. The detail is slightly disappointing because it's all inlaid and it's not very detailed. But as you can tell, here's the firebox. Here's the cold opening doors where you can manually feed it. A bunch of other piping, not much else inside of there. On the flip side, you have another access door right here. Once again, heavily shrouded. Underneath, you have two openings for the speakers. There we go, if I could shine that in the light. I believe these are metal contacts. I'm not sure if they actually are conductive, but you have the coal dump. I'm still learning about this model as I go along, so please forgive me if I get anything wrong. You have an air canister or a water canister, little storage tank there. The wheels are very clean when you get the model. Like I said, this has been ran on one time, and that's about it. The roller bearings are very detailed. The trucks are detailed. This has a total of 8 axles in the tender. If you flip around to the rear side, you have legible plates that actually are different for every model. You have a rear taillight that is illuminated. You have grab irons on either side. You have a ladder. You have another standpipe that goes all the way down the side of the rear of the tender. Now let me go ahead and get out the magnifying glass here. Right there, I believe, if I can read it, which I cannot at the moment. It says number 5501, class 180P84, engine number 5501 on the lower plate. And on the upper plate, it says Pennsylvania Railroad Equipment Trust Series Q, Fidelity Philadelphia Trust Company, trustee, owner, and lessor. It's very hard to read for me, that's why I was kind of out of frame there. But both of these are legible plates. The upper plate is the one I just read, the lower plate has the engine number. Let's go on to the top of the locomotive. You have two other storage tanks right here. You have the tire standpipe that goes all the way down the length of the rear of the tender. It's very smooth lines. The inside is very well painted. You have two other little openings or little storages right down there. I believe that's for water. As mentioned in the video, the tender is very detailed. These would they would have to use access doors to fill it with water or sand or anything, which is why this is the as-delivered form. When the Phase 2 rebuild that was done a couple years afterwards, like the picture here. This picture, as you can tell, a lot of the shrouding has been removed from the tender and the locomotive, but those are also numbered in the 6000 series instead of the 5000 series. So now, let's go on ahead and go on to the locomotive, because the tender, it's nothing compared to the locomotive in detail. Here's the locomotive itself. Now this locomotive weighs in with tender and locomotive. I have not weighed it single, but the locomotive obviously is all the weight. It weighs 2 pounds, 10.5 ounces, and this may vary model to model. I'm not entirely sure yet, but this is what I measured it as. Number 5501, as delivered from Broadway Limited. No tampering whatsoever. The couplers haven't been changed. Nothing's been done to it. When you get it, the drive rods are actually in the same position. Like this position would be in that position, but since I ran it, it does change up. The first thing I want to point out before we even get to the detail is something not so detailed. As you can tell, on the rear drivers, you have two traction tires. Now, these traction tires make a world of difference. Like I said, this locomotive didn't even bear to struggle going up a grade, and this is steeper grades. A model of the Cajon Pass of about a modeled 3.5% grade, it did not slip with 30 cars. So what I do want to point out about this model is with the rear drivers actually having traction tires, this can possibly allow the front driver to slip. Now this, many modelers may disagree and say, that's not right, I don't want my engine to start slipping, but on the actual T1s, it took a very, very skilled engineer to run these due to the fact that the front drivers would normally slip. So, if you're actually running this and the front drivers begin to slip, the rear drivers will not because of those traction tires. Will they possibly slip? Yes. But with traction tires, what normally happens is the locomotive, instead of spinning its wheels, it will just start to slow down as the motor will not be able to handle pulling the weight. But the wheels will not slip. On the front, I believe it is different because the motor will continue to spin and these will continue to slip. This is actually a 2-axle drive locomotive. Now, like some diesels, like an SD60, for example, it has a 6-axle drive. All 6 axles are powered. Well, with this one, only 2 of the axles are powered, but the center drivers still spin as the piston rods are still connected to it. However, as you could tell, the center axles are actually flangeless. Do they help? I believe so. Do they swing off the rail? Yes, they do. Because these were always known as the track straighteners, because they were not articulated in any way. From what I've had from running this, is the locomotive tends to derail its pilot axle and its front drivers. This may be different varying model to model. I'm not entirely sure. I did run this at higher speeds, so that could possibly be why. Now, the front of this locomotive is highly detailed along with many of the other parts of this locomotive, but the front of it is really its face. What I have always loved about the T1s is that it looks like, instead of being such as a Mikado, you can kind of see a smile in it. If you look at the grab iron, how it curves off of the boiler, like normally this would be curved in a way, and then the headlight would be its eye in a way. So it kind of looks like a smiley face. Well, with this, the T1 has always looked bold, with the straight face ready to take on the world, ready to take on whatever it's pulling, whatever it needs to. It's the ultimate. Now, of course, many of you may disagree with me, but I still think this still has it. I never truly realized how arched the streamlining is, because you can tell you can see the crease lines, and it doesn't look as streamlined as you may think in some pictures, but this is because I believe of the tooling that Broadway Limited had to do. The headlight is a white color. Now, I'm very happy about this because some of the LEDs they put in some of their locomotives are blue. This one happens just to be white, which I'm very happy about. The keystone is legible, obviously. It has the gold trim around it. It is a solid piece of plastic that is red, so it's red. It has red edges. It says 5501, very legible. The coupler in the front, very well operating. It's a spring-loaded coupler instead of one of those little Bachmann couplers in a way that has just a little piece of metal that tends to bend or break. You have 2 air hoses. Now, I have to warn you before I go any further. These 2 air hoses, along with the shrouding down here, actually catch crossings. If you have a railroad crossing that's a little bit, it's even with the rail, this will catch it. So I'm figuring out how to fix that. But it has 2 little air hoses right down here. We have 2 little steps that are inlaid detail. You have 3 steps on either side. This one actually happens to be slightly bent. You have 3 of them on either side. You have 3 portholes on the other side, which are normally used to expose the pistons inside, but obviously you cannot see those. We have some grills that go all across the front and on here right below the boiler face. You have this chrome detail all the way around the headlights. You have more grab irons on either side of the face of it. You have a little access door here. I believe the front of this comes off. I have not tested that yet. It does have 2 creases along the entire front of the boiler, so I believe that can be removed to fix any lighting or any interior problems. Let's go on ahead and move on to the engineer's side, which we have not fully reviewed yet. I'm not even going to cut the film. I'm going to just turn the locomotive with the film. Like I said before, we have 3 portholes on this side. We have a legible T1 builder's plate, which I will now find out what it says exactly. Altoona Works T1 1946, and it says something else that I'm not currently going to read because that would cause me to look too close to the camera. Anyways, we have a legible builder's plate. It says Altoona Works. It has the T1 in the middle of it. You have a grab iron that runs the entire length of the model. You have these are lighted marker lights on the side. This is on either side. These only light up when the engine hits 1 speed step or higher. You have legible 5501 number plates on the side. You have the marker light bulb right here, which also lights up the 5501. The drivers are extensively detailed. Everything that you see here moves. You have a little poppet valve. You have another storage tank right there. The drive rods are very detailed. They're clean. They're smooth. Everything that I've seen here, nothing really moves. Like the see that moves a little bit, but you don't really see that much while it's running. It's not loose, it's not spinning around or anything. The pilot axle is detailed. It's not as detailed as anything else because obviously it's just a pilot axle. It's all inlaid detail. That is also a disappointment with me on the rear pilot, is that, or on the rear axles, that it's all inlaid detail. I wish it would have been some separately applied detail. The firebox actually has separate rivets that you can feel. These are inlaid. They, do protrude from the model. You have another little crease right here that is covered up. You have two little standpipes that go all the way down the side of the firebox. You have another legible plate, which I will read here in a moment. There are no cab figures in this model specifically. You have separately applied windows here. There are no windows here or on the door. You have some striping down here towards the foot plates, which actually match up with the tender when you're running it on track. Rest of this model is very detailed on this side. There are some similar differences on one and the other side. But let's go ahead and find out what that plate actually says here. I'm glad I got my trusty magnifying glass. So I'm holding the model up to my eye right now so I can actually read the plate. And it says Pennsylvania Railroad Equipment Trust Series Q, Fidelity Philadelphia Trust Company, Trustee, Owner, and Lessors. And the builder's plate actually says Altoona Works T1 1946 4697, I believe. I am probably wrong on that. Please correct me if I am. I know one of you will. But there's the builder's plate, and there is the legible plate that I read that has the Fidelity, Philadelphia, etc. We're going to go ahead and move on to the cab of this locomotive. So we're going ahead and flip this around. The cab is disappointing. I will let you know that. Now, it's all inlaid detail once again. There are no cab figures, but no one's really going to poke much into there, so we're not going to go deeply into the cab because you can't even see it. If I can reposition my light, you can barely see there's a firebox door somewhere inside there. There's two separate sections of it. There are no seats I can feel. There's some control gauges here, but nothing is separately painted. It's all black plastic. I'm going to flip around to the fireman's side. No, this is the engineer's side. My apologies, everyone. This is the engineer's side. We just reviewed the conductor's side or the fireman's side. My apologies to that. Yep. As you can tell, there's actually a large difference towards the back where the cab is. There's more standpipes. There's a lot more piping, as a matter of fact, coming down from the boiler across the firebox. The drivers and the axles are all the same except for a new box that's applied right here. You have some more separately applied handrails. The whistle, I believe, is brass. I'm not entirely sure about that, but the whistle, I believe, is brass, along with three other valves that go across the top that are inlaid into the model, which we will see when we lift up this model and flip it over on its side. There's not much difference. Same plate, same builder's plate, a couple other separately applied handrails across the model. But that's about it for that. Let's flip this thing on its side here. As you can tell, the roof is not very detailed. Here are those three valves I just mentioned in the whistle. This does come equipped with a smoke unit. I highly recommend you do not use a smoke unit. Please. Broadway Limited is just... they have a record of leaky smoke units. Once the smoke unit leaks, it targets the wiring and it targets the motor, which can ruin your model. So please do not use the smoke unit. That's your personal preference. I just do not recommend it. Over here we have the smoke vent for the cab that actually slides open and closed. It slides on these little slider bars here. And you can adjust that. It's kind of hard to move, so be careful with it. But that does open and close. For all those who are wondering, the off and on switch for the smoke unit is located directly underneath the cab behind the rear axle of the pilot, or of the rear pilot to be precise. It says Broadway Limited Imports right there. Everything is very clean on this model. It is very, very detailed. I showed you my complaints. You have your own. This is the model. Now let's go on and I'm going to show you how difficult it can be sometimes to connect the two wires from the tender into the locomotive itself. Now with this, as I will zoom in onto this while I do it. With this model, it is actually more difficult to do just because of the streamlining and the face of the tender. I must use both hands, but as you can tell, it will not go in with one hand. I would rather use a tool to get this thing in there, but you have to make sure you line it up correctly. That's in there, but it's, if you want to use a little toothpick or something, just be careful of the wires because you don't want to rip them out. And it's in there. Now remember, I've been practicing with this model, so keep that in mind. It's not easy the first time around. There we go. We just locked in the tender. Let's zoom out and look at the completed model. Now it is sinking into the foam here because the foam is very flexible, but as you can see, it's not really meant to do that on rail. Here's the completed model, tender and all. As I said before, this locomotive is a very good puller. I have very few complaints about it, besides some of the detail. I am learning about this locomotive as you are learning about it for this video. The review of this video, I'm going to insert it at the end of this video, the run session, which will also include a pull test and other various speed testings. This locomotive is very detailed. It comes with an extended 2-year warranty, which I'm not going to show you so you guys can't use it. It comes with an exploded model, which I will now unfold. As you can tell, the bottom is the locomotive, the top is the tender, which shows speakers and decoders and all. Also comes with a operator's manual, which I'm only holding sideways so I can show you guys. And this model did not come with smoke fluid. I did not get a smoke fluid packet in my box, which I'm not going to complain about too much because I'm not using the smoke unit. Also, what came into the box is it came with a little funnel, which most Broadway Limited models come with. It comes with a little clear funnel. And it also comes with 2 additional traction tires, along with a little tool that can be used to remove the piston rods in the sense that you need to replace the traction tires. So that's a very handy tool to have since most models, I believe, do not come with. This is my first Broadway Limited model I own besides a C&O SW7, which I recently donated. But this is the T1. Please go out and get one for yourself. These locomotives are fantastic pullers. They do derail, but we'll find out that in the model, actually the run test of this locomotive. So please enjoy your model. I hope this review helped you guys out. Enjoy the run session of it. This is the end of the comprehensive review.
Sir.